Welcome to the Front End Nerdery podcast, a podcast about front end development and design. I'm your host, Todd Libby. My guest today is Senior JavaScript Engineer, Powerlifter, Dog Mom, Speaker, and my twin, because we were born on January 23rd, Kayla Sween. Kayla, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Would you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, well, like you said, I'm a Senior JavaScript Engineer at, I guess technically we're Nelnet Community Engagement now, but I work on the Aware 3 platform. And they're, a really chill company doing stuff for churches and nonprofits and schools. So it's a good place to work. Shameless plug there. But yeah, currently doing that, organizing the next MagnoliaJS. And that's pretty much my whole life right now.
All right, well, let's dive right into the questions then. So how did you get started in your web development journey?
Well, I had the traditional path. I went to school for computer science and, graduated, did that. I did start my master's degree because I thought I wanted to be in academia. But when I was getting my master's degree, I got a job doing front-end development and with a UX group. And I learned that, it is much nicer, having money than going to school all the time. And B, it's I felt like I was learning a lot more on the job than I ever did at school. So I stopped getting my master's degree and the rest is history.
Well, let's actually talk about MagnoliaJS because that's why I wanted to have you on. It's one of my top 5 conferences, even though I haven't even been there.
You and mostly everybody else at this point. I feel like there's so much hype, and then we only had one in-person event before everything got shut down. But yeah.
The virtual conferences were great. You gave a talk at the one in 2019, which I stood up. I literally got out of my office chair because you spoke about, or you gave a talk called How to Avoid SUX. And I literally, when I saw the words accessibility on that slide, I stood up out of my chair and I gave you a standing ovation because I was just, somebody's talking about this. Okay. And I was like, heck yeah, and then 2020, you talked about progressive enhancement for React. And again, got me out of my chair because, someone's talking about, progressive enhancement and accessibility at a JavaScript conference. And I loved it. So my question is, what would you tell JavaScript developers about the importance of those two things, accessibility and progressive enhancement?
Well, I feel like you could speak to that better than just about anybody else as to why it's important. But yeah, it just knowing that if you're not thinking about different types of users when you're developing stuff, and even when it ties into progressive enhancement is users with slower network speeds or just stuff like that. I live in Mississippi, so that's a real problem because a lot of Mississippi is rural, and so we might have some people on 3G connections still, who can say, but you need to make sure that your stuff's going to work for as many people as possible, and making sure that your JavaScript code is accessible is a good way to do that, and also making sure that you're doing as much as you can with I don't want to say the bare, technologies, but make sure you're doing as much as you can with HTML and CSS and using it properly and not just shoving ARIA rules on stuff,
right.
Is a huge thing. And even if you can move your web app into some kind of static site generator to make it load a little faster on the client side, that's even better.
Yeah. Now, how about the importance of implementing accessibility from the start of any project? What would you say about that?
Well, because I'm sure you're super familiar with this, and anybody else who has worked in accessibility for any amount of time, but yeah, nobody ever really thinks about it until either the tail end of it or they're about to get sued. And so, yeah, it's a lot harder to refactor stuff because, I mean, accessibility starts from the design of the site, like laying out the content in a way that makes sense and making sure that the colors that your design team pick out for buttons and headings and links and whatever all makes sense, and hit the sufficient color contrast and things of that nature. So, I mean, once you start thinking about that stuff after the site's implemented and after you've already made all those decisions, well, it takes, if nothing else, it's just so much more work to try to do it. And at that point, nobody wants to do it anymore. And so that's, I mean, that's the biggest thing is like, if you don't do it at the beginning, it's probably not going to get done.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen, okay, a lot of, like you said, a lot of people wait until they get sued. And now, especially with accessibility overlays, people are getting sued, and now they have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, we got to take this off and we got to, go back and redo things. And I've, in my experiences, talked with stakeholders and, managers, and they've been like, well, we just don't have the time or the budget. Well, yes, you do. Because if you implement that from the start, and, carry that through, it's already there. You're paying your people to do the work. And if you're going to wait until the end, then you got to pay those people again because they got to go back and fix things. So
yeah, basically double. You're doing double the work. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It's funny because I talked with one person, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, and I said, when I was working for this company, I said, well, we got to make sure everything's accessible, because they had a SaaS product and they had a public facing website. And the answer to, or the reply to what I said when I said, we got to make things accessible. Well, we don't have disabled users. And
I've been told that before.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it it doesn't, I guess, surprise me, but it kind of, it doesn't surprise me, but it shocks me a little bit still. How can anybody think that? And then of course you go into the whole situational thing and blah, blah, blah. But this person I was talking to, they had eyeglasses on. I was like, well, your eyeglasses are an assistive technology. So, yep. Do you find that you hear from developers the same thing? Or have you, anybody that you pretty much, had to deal with as far as that goes? Have you heard, things like that before?
I've mostly heard things like that from like product owners. So I think from a lot of the developers I've talked to about this kind of stuff is like, it's not really it's not a malicious thing or anything that they didn't want to do the work. It's just that A, they didn't know that they were needed to, and B, they of course did not know how. And it's all, I mean, it's kind of daunting when you get started, right? It's like, there's a lot. The WCAG spec is a lot and hard to read. And I mean, cause I have ADHD. I'm not going to sit there and, read through that whole spec, cause I just will not get through it.
Right.
And so like, it's a lot of from a developer standpoint. I haven't had it hasn't been a hard sell, I guess. It's just a lot of, well, how do I do that? And then it's just kind of training out old patterns for the most part. It's just like, you can put a click listener on a button, but on a div, but why not use a button instead? Kind of thing. And it's like, that's been the biggest thing. It's just like little tricks here and there just to kind of, tweak patterns that they have developed over time. But it's mostly been product owners that have just been like, no, we don't have the time to do that. No, we don't have any disabled users. no, this isn't a thing that affects us, even though it absolutely did if they had listened to anything I had said before that.
Right.
But
Yeah. Do you think developers, no matter what they are, full stack, JavaScript, whatever, do you think they undervalue accessibility, or is it just a lack of, I guess, a lack of education about accessibility?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both.
Mhm.
I think it's just because like I said, it does seem like a lot of work at the beginning. I mean, whenever you get down to it, it kind of is,
Mhm.
right? Just trying to make sure that you're actually just double checking the color contrast of stuff, making sure that a lot of that is design decisions made by not developers, but making sure the content makes sense on the page and in that right layout. And I mean, making sure that you can actually navigate to everything on the page via the keyboard or via a screen reader or whatever. But yeah, it's just, I think it's mostly an education thing. It's whenever people hear about accessibility, they don't, they think it's a lot of work and they don't really know how to get started. And I think as much as people don't, want to go handhold developers into doing that kind of stuff, I think that's what it's going to take. And especially in the developers day to day, because if they don't have anybody at the company showing them tangible things that they can change to make something better, then that becomes a lot harder. So yeah.
And I know, being a developer myself, not as much anymore, but in the past, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to, especially now. So for instance, it's a lot different today, I think, than it was, let's just say 20 years ago when I was doing PHP development. I didn't, there wasn't, there wasn't NPM or Yarn. There wasn't, Netlify. There wasn't, GitHub wasn't around. I mean, we had versioning control, but it was, what was it? Subversion and.
Oh my gosh, I used SVN when I started too. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was rough.
So yeah.
And TFS, that was the other one that I started with.
Yeah. So the tools are a lot different. There's a lot more to learn. There's all these different frameworks. There's all these different, libraries. And I think it is both a lack of education and, it's undervalued. It on my day-to-day.
I'm sure they feel like it's not a money maker for them, right?
Yeah.
I get paid to write JavaScript, period, the end.
Right.
And
yeah, I get paid to write JavaScript. I feel like I don't have to go any further than that.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's and sometimes in my day-to-day when I look on Twitter and I see, why do I have to do this and why do I have to do that? Well, I have told people before that, it's not you're designing the product for, you that you're writing the code for. It's the user, the other people, the people that are using the product, or buying the product even. So yeah. I
think that's the biggest thing that for people in general is not being able to, separate their experiences from everybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, if the pandemic has taught me nothing else, it's that, people are just more worried about themselves than they are other people.
Yeah.
And that sounds really jaded to say, but but I mean, that's the way it is. And so, yeah, it's not going to be a priority for a lot of people until something happens to them. And I guess that's just an unfortunate truth, but it's just trying to find little ways to, introduce it into their day-to-day lives. That's as unobtrusive as possible. And yeah, I see a lot of people on Twitter will attack folks for, for not doing stuff that's accessible and whatever. And it's like, I mean, having been the sole person at a company that cares about accessibility multiple times, that's certainly not the way you can go about it and actually enact change. And I am a super aggressive person. Like I'll just, straight up fight with folks about stuff I feel strongly about.
Yeah.
So I get the want to do that, but it's the same thing, is that you don't really understand where those people are coming from, and they don't understand where you're coming from, and you just have to be able to kind of be open-minded to their experiences and vice versa. So
yeah, and that, you bring up a great point. So back, let's just say again, 20 years ago, it was the shame game, shame on you. And it kind of still is today, but not, I don't see the people I used to see doing it anymore. It was, shame on you, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, there are instances where, I think that it's valid to say, and I've done it recently, shame on you. You have an accessibility overlay on your website. Those do not work. You're only putting up another barrier for disabled people. But then
and
again,
I feel like that's even an ignorance thing, right? It's like, because those companies are marketing to other companies saying this is what makes your website accessible, when it clearly is not.
Right.
So yeah,
it's not just a flip of the switch.
I wish.
I wish too.
Honestly.
Yeah, it would be nice, it would be nice. So, getting, I guess, so I think, I've pretty much answered that question. Or you have anyway. My next question was going to be, I kind of go a little off track here, but what kind of tools or things that you're using, that you're working with, that you would recommend to people, to devs, or even devs like me who, I'm not doing it really professionally, but I'm kind of doing things on the side to learn, to understand, basically, for the accessibility knowledge about the, say, Next or, Svelte, for instance, just, throwing those out there. People like me that are learning different technologies, for whatever reason. What are you using that you highly recommend?
As far as like tools for accessibility stuff?
Tools for accessibility, or even tools in general, really.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, for accessibility, I always go to the, the Jackson Black's Colorable for color contrast. Classic. Well, not as classic as like the WebAIM one, but I like it a little bit more now that I've gotten used to it. And then like, even just like looking at some browser extensions for accessibility stuff. I like Dalton to like simulate certain things like color blindness and or like different kinds of color blindness. But like for regular development tools, I guess, like, my biggest thing right now is Notion. Everything goes into Notion. And I'll forget anything and everything all the time. So
I know the feeling.
And any notes I take on what I'm learning about or anything like that, everything goes into Notion. And so that's probably like my biggest thing that I always plug. But as far as like just development stuff, I'm in VS Code all day, every day. I don't use anything too fancy, but I'm always looking to try out new stuff.
So am I. I'm still using an FTP client, so I still use FileZilla on occasion. So
oh my gosh. I was doing that until recently because of the hosting provider my website was on was kind of janky, to be honest. But it's thankfully I'm switched over to Netlify now, so a lot better. It's so much nicer to not have to like start up WAMP these days, you know what I mean? Like Just, I don't even have to think about what is happening to get my code on a website now, and it's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. So going back to Magnolia JS, those two talks that we talked about before, and then we met this year in person at Connect Tech.
Finally, yes.
Finally. And that was great. And it was safe for everybody. So I want to throw that out there. It was, everybody was, it was,
and I'm super cautious. Like I'm the kind of person where I won't go eat in a restaurant still. Like I've eaten in a restaurant once, I think, since the pandemic started. And that was like May 2021, right after getting like fully vaccinated. But yeah, so I will not go somewhere if I don't feel like it'll be safe. And so yeah, Connect Tech was like that. Pratik talked me into going to Connect Tech at Render because I was like, I'm only going to Render because they're testing and because they're requiring vaccinations. That's it.
Yeah.
And Pratik was like, well, we're changing ours now, so think about it. And so yeah, Richard and I decided to come. Richard's my husband.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that will and we intend to do the same thing at Magnolia too. Is like we're obviously still trying to find out logistics and stuff for and if we need to do daily testing, but we'll see. Obviously feel out the situation. I would love to not have to swab everybody's noses when they come in, but and I will personally not be doing that. I'll note, like we'll hire an actual nurse to do that. I won't be doing it. But that's that's my biggest thing with Magnolia is I'm not going to have Magnolia if I wouldn't feel comfortable going to it.
Right.
And yeah, because COVID is super serious to me, and I certainly do not want anybody to feel unsafe.
Yeah, definitely. So I was actually going to go into asking you, what do we have to look forward to as far as Magnolia goes, and is it still going to be in person? If you decide to say, okay, things aren't as good as we want them to be, will you postpone it, or will you put it? Will you do virtual again?
I would lean more towards postponing it than I would go virtual again. As fun as it was, like seeing everybody get their like swag in the mail and stuff, like it's hard to get sponsors for virtual events because just from financially because and I get it, there's not a huge return on investment for them. They're not able to go meet developers and potentially do some recruiting and networking that they would normally be able to do. But yeah, plus it was just kind of chaotic, right? Like and I think people just don't care about virtual events anymore. I think that's really what it boils down to. And because we had probably a third of what we had at the MagnoliaJS 2020 just in signups, just because I'm sure people have learned that whatever. So yeah, it's important to me to have it in person this year. And if worse comes to worse, then yeah, we will postpone it probably to the fall if we can, depending on the situation, I guess. But yeah, that's something I hope to have on the website soon, is like all of our COVID protocols and the game plan in case something goes awry.
Definitely. And I definitely will be submitting a talk.
And we won't have a CFP, but
oh, you won't? Okay.
Yeah, I will reach out to you though.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's just me and Richard doing this whole thing. So
gotcha.
I was like, CFP is not going to happen. I'm not going to have the time for it, but I'm hoping to hire a team for next year so that we will be able to have like a proper CFP and then open it up some more.
Well, I'll look forward to hearing from you then. And
well, I was hoping to do it this week, but the venue is having issues because they're having their grand opening this week, and also the person I've been in contact with is sick because feels like everybody's sick right now. So that's kind of delayed my plans a little bit. But
so did you have a time or a date range where you were gonna?
Yes.
Okay, when would that be?
So it is if we for sure have it in May, which that is the current plan, we're having it May 10th and 11th. Okay. So it'll be a 2-day conference. And I'll go ahead and say because this is pretty finalized at this point, but we're going to have it at the Capri Theater in Jackson, Mississippi, which is like an old historic theater. It's super cool in there. It's attached to a bowling alley, so we'll have the bowling alley too. And we may have like a lounge next door to that as well, but we're still working on that, on getting those final details. But yeah, it's I'm really pumped about the venue, because it's like the inside's super cool, and I mean, it's just a theater. You've got like the recliners that theaters have these days.
Gotcha.
And there's like a table, because they do kind of like an Alamo kind of thing where you can order food and they deliver it to your seat.
Okay.
And so and then of course, if you get tired of seeing me or Kenneth LaFrance up on the stage talking about talks, then you can go hang out in the bowling alley, take a break a little while, talk to some sponsors, and
well, that sounds awesome.
very
I'll
excited about that.
I'll have to inquire to see if they have any lobster rolls.
That's on my list of things. The next time I'm gonna talk to them, we're gonna talk about catering, and I'm be like, all right, where's the lobsters? Todd needs lobsters.
Right. Oh, that'd be great. So that's awesome. Definitely,
Super excited.
I'm sure the vibe will be the same as it was virtual, in person, because like you said, you're very cautious. I'm very cautious as well. Okay. So I'm actually going to DevNexus. I'll be speaking there. I'll be giving the talk there, the same one I gave at Connect Tech. And the traveling, the only worry I have about the traveling is going viral, my flight going viral. As far as somebody's acting up, and then I just for whatever reason lose my cool and want to help the air marshals escort the people off. So I mean, that's my only concern is that so I'm definitely looking forward to that. So, and I definitely will keep my eye out for you reaching out. Definitely.
Hopefully in the next couple weeks, for sure. Gonna aim for that. Because the contact of the venue was like, as soon as I am not stuck in bed, then I was like, take care of you first and foremost. Like, I'll be here later. But I just obviously wanted to make absolutely positively 10 trillion% sure that was going to be the dates before I started reaching out to speakers and having y'all plan, and then hopefully not having to cancel. But
fingers crossed, definitely. So I wanted to ask, I know and I've been so busy lately with things. I saw a video of you doing bench. So I wanted to ask, how's the powerlifting going? I saw the video with you and Richard.
Yep.
Have you set any personal records so far?
So I was going to compete a couple weekends ago, but we had some winter weather, and I live in the South, and I'm not going to be going anywhere if there's ice or snow. But I also, that was like starting to peak Omicron for us, and I was like, I am not going to be the only person there wearing a mask, and it's just not worth it to me. And so decided to do a little like mock meet at home. I was doing bench only anyway because my knees have been acting up. It's it happens.
Yes, I know how that feels too.
Thankfully, I was able to set like a body weight personal record. So I benched 187.5 pounds, which was the highest I had done at my current body weight, and like beat my past competition PR by 1 pound. So I was hoping to to go to the meet, set a state record. And I would have set a state record there if I had gone. But yeah, just wasn't the right time, I guess.
Right.
Hoping to hit like 200 next time though. That's my goal.
There you go.
That's this year's goal, is 200 on bench.
Yeah. Yeah, you got this.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. So
I'll just do it consistently. Yeah.
I don't even remember what when I was doing stuff, I wasn't, competitive. I didn't do anything competitive as far as weights or anything, but I kind of, when I was playing sports in high school and in the gym regularly, I was such a scrawny kid that I don't think I could even do my own body weight. So, I applaud people that can do it. I'm like,
I was the least athletic kid growing up. Like, like both of my parents did, like my dad played football when he was in school and my mom ran track and whatever. And here I am, like, not really that great at anything sports related, not at all athletic. And so, yeah, thankfully when I was like 24, I started doing powerlifting, but, I tried to lift weights when I was in college, but I could not even bench the bar, like, and that's like 45 pounds. So yeah, everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took me 8, 9, maybe 10 years to get to the point where I'm at now, but yeah.
I was actually in the gym. So let's see, I've been out here for 4 months. So last year, so 2020, I was going to a gym and I managed to go from 290 to 255 pounds. So it does take time, like you said.
Oh yeah.
But then I had 2 operations and then I moved from Maine to Arizona.
Gosh, moving alone is like, it's rough to try to stick with anything when you're moving, but then yes, on top of that, having 2 surgeries, just yeah.
So I'm back up to where I don't want to belong, but walking around the block here, and I do go to the gym, but mask up all the time. I haven't hit the weights as much as I have been. So one of the operations I had was for a hernia. So it's taken a while. So I tested out the ab machine, and boy, didn't I pay for that.
Gosh, yeah.
I'm apparently all healed and everything. Everything's fine down there, but oh Lord.
It's like that though, like, because I had knee surgery in like fall 2019. My doctor told me that I would be fine within like a month, is what I heard. I'd be back to almost normal within a month. So I started training as soon as he gave me the go ahead, and oh my God, I was not fine. And so yeah, it wasn't until like probably a year later before the knee I had surgery on was good to go. And then, now my other one is starting to act up. So gotta love that. Yeah. But yeah.
Takes a while after coming back. Yeah. So last question. I got to ask about the saxophone playing.
Oh yeah. I do have a saxophone. Oh yeah. It's over here too. I can even like send its case, but I haven't been playing it as much because my dogs are afraid of it.
They don't like jazz.
They're well, I guess it's because like I got my older dog Captain. I got him after I'd stopped being in band, and so he didn't grow up around me playing saxophone all the time. And Piper, my other dog, she's just afraid of every noise ever. And so I'm hoping to get like an electronic wind instrument so that I can just put my earbuds in and they won't hear anything and I'll still be able to play again. But yeah.
Okay, coming down on time here, so I'm going to ask final 3 questions that I ask all my guests. You ready? It's kind
I'm
of,
ready.
these are the hard hitting questions.
Oh, maybe I'm not ready.
So first question, what about the web these days excites you and keeps you excited in what you do?
I guess it's not really things about the web in particular that excite me. It's just the amount of people that we've got coming into development that excites me. And like the change that I've seen since I've been a developer, away from focusing on people who have CS degrees and towards people who are like, second career devs or like came from boot camps or whatever. Like that's the thing that excites me the most, is like that change and that kind of diversity that comes with people who are doing that don't just have CS degrees.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So the second question, if there were one thing you could change about the web that we know today, what would that be?
Man, that is a hard-hitting question. Oh man. Yeah. I feel like I could have a lot of answers for this, and I don't know which ones are like appropriate to speak about publicly. You know what I mean? Like I feel like sometimes especially when you're on Twitter all day, right? Like sometimes you're like, man, the internet was a mistake. And then
I've actually yeah, go ahead. I've actually had that as an answer. Yeah, I've actually had that as an answer. So, and you could say anything.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it's just there's a lot of just I see people even just locally to Mississippi sometimes, like folks arguing with like actual real life doctors about stuff that they specialize in, like the doctors specialize in, and they're like, no, you're wrong. And I'm like,
yeah,
I'm sorry, who went to school for this? Like not you.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if I could change anything, it would just be like, I think for the people who are on the web, just to remember that there's a person on the other side of that. I mean, sometimes there's not, sometimes it is a bot, but there is an actual person on the other side of that conversation that then they've had, a whole lifetime to develop their opinions and beliefs, and they've just had a lot of experiences. So just, and also you don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know what's happened lately, if the tragedy has befallen their family, or they've gotten laid off, or there's a person on the other side of that conversation is really the thing that I would like to change.
Yeah, definitely. It's so thinking back to when I first was on in message boards and chat rooms and all that stuff, there's been a constant, and of course those constants, I should say, are the trolls. I mean, I call them what they are. And actually, confessional, having been one myself, always looking for an argument, but no longer.
That was me after my dad passed away from COVID. I got on Twitter looking for people that would dare tell me that vaccines weren't anything or whatever, like masks didn't work, or because my dad was one of those people. My dad was a troll on Twitter telling people all those same things, and like I was just waiting for people to tell me that, and I'd be like, well, see what happened to him for believing the same stuff you did. So I've thankfully gotten past that and chilled out a little bit. But
these days, Facebook, Twitter, any kind of platform really now, it's all emotionally driven to make CEOs and stakeholders money.
Oh, absolutely.
And as well as I do, and pretty much everybody knows now, we're the product. It wasn't that case as much, I don't think, anyways, back then, but
it feels like it wasn't as much the case back then. But it is. Of course, it's a whole different I mean,
I don't even, remember some of the arguments I used to get in, but they were so petty. And it seems like these days it's about anything and everything that anybody can just say, oh, you want to talk about, you want to argue about COVID? Let's
Yeah.
let's
Your
go on
favorite
Twitter.
color is green. Screw
Eh,
you. Like
yeah,
my favorite
exactly.
color is blue. Like, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the last question I got here is favorite part of front end development that you really like to nerd out over.
I just like anytime I learn something new, I guess, is like a new way of doing something or like a new technology or whatever. Cause like, I mean, I already get like super excited about all the like JavaScript frameworks there are out there. It's like, cause there's just so many. And like, I mean, I started out using AngularJS, like Angular 1. And I was like, when I started doing that, I was regretting my career decisions, doing Angular 1 after, and this was even as recently as like 2018 doing Angular 1, because that's just what enterprise environments still use sometimes. But I was like, maybe I don't need to be doing JavaScript, maybe I need to be like doing design or something like that. I tried doing design for a little while and that wasn't for me because I wanted to write code again. And but yeah, that's just the amount of new technologies and new frameworks that are out there, and like as easy as they're getting to use, like relatively, right? Like they're just not, the learning curve is less steep now than it had been in the past. And I feel like that's awesome because yeah, that just leads the way for more different kinds of people to come and be developers and even make those frameworks better. Like,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's all the questions I have, and this hour kind of flew right by. So
I feel like we've been here for like 5 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'd like to close the podcast out with my guests letting the listeners know what they currently have going on and where people can find you online. So the floor is yours. Go for it.
Well, you can find me personally on Twitter at _ Kayla Sween. Still trying to get Kayla Sween, the other Kayla Sween, to give up her handle because she hasn't been on it in like 8 years, but one of these days. But yeah, so there's that. You can see MagnoliaJS at MagnoliaJS Conf on Twitter. We also have, or at MagnoliaJS.com. If your company is looking to sponsor some in-person events this year, we've got a interest form on the website, or you can just email sponsors@magnoliajs.com, or just DM me on Twitter or the Magnolia account, and we'll get you the information. But yeah, those are the biggest things I'm working on right now. I don't think my company is hiring currently, but they're amazing. Everybody there is amazing. And if we are hiring, then I'll be posting about that on Twitter as well.
Nice. So that's it. Thank you, Kayla, for joining me today and sharing part of your, definitely. Thank you for sharing part of your day with me and the listeners. I can't wait for Magnolia. Hopefully, again, fingers crossed that everything goes as well as we want, and we'll be getting back together again in May, and I can see you and Richard again. And
I sure hope so. Yeah, it'd be fun to have everybody in Mississippi.
Yeah, definitely. So again, thank you for being here, and thank you, listeners, for tuning into the Front End Nerdery podcast. I'll be back next time with a new guest, new conversation about front-end design, development, and other topics as well. If you would please rate this podcast on your podcast device of choice, like, subscribe, and watch on the Front End Nerdery YouTube channel. Links to transcripts and show notes are there because this podcast is fully accessible, I hope. And with that, I'm Todd Libby, and this has been the Front End Nerdery podcast. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.